Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome back to MCubed and SciTrek over here. Whichever. I can never figure out the fingers and hands and all that. Yada, yada, yada. But we've got Cinema Scoop Wednesday ready for you today. We don't have the most amount of topics to go over, but the topics we do have to go over are good ones. TIFF just released a bunch of good movies to come out, and we'll talk about that probably a little more towards the end. But to start this thing off, we are going to be talking about where big budget movies go to die or go to get passed on. One of the others. It's more clicky to type where to die, but
I mean, we're going for a weird thing at the moment, aren't we? Where stuff's getting made that then isn't getting released.
Scrap.
Has that ever happened before?
Yes, but not to this degree. Kind of.
Batgirl.
Yeah. Recent memory is kind of
Ever happened before?
Not like that. Not like that. Well, shall we roll this intro and hop in it?
Go for it.
Let's do it. All right. Let me grab this article over here, and we.
Like that.
The what?
Free Batgirl.
Booyah. All right. Well, shall we do how we did the other day and kind of go back and forth?
Talk it through.
Yeah. All right. So what happens to big budget TV shows like Nautilus after they are canceled? If y'all remember, I think last Wednesday we talked about The Creator and Rebel Moon, but the Monday of last week we talked about Nautilus and what's the other one that just got canceled? Spiderwick Chronicles. Spiderwick Chronicles was I believe had begun filming and it got passed on. All right.
Spiderwick. Yeah, I think they'd done a fair bit of filming on it. They spent a lot of money. He-Man, the live action He-Man got cancelled 3 weeks before that, and they hadn't started principal photography, but they had spent $30 million in development. $30 million.
Boy. Yeah, the 1/3 of Batgirl, because that was $90 million, which is insane.
Yeah. It's 80, high 80s, wasn't it? That they'd said they'd spent, and principal photography was virtually done. I believe principal photography was done, wasn't it? They were just doing.
Yeah.
They might have done some. They were planning a couple of reshoots.
Yeah, it needed reshoots and a few other things. That one I think is like. It's the not the golden goose, but the ugly duckling, I think, because that one, everyone that saw it said it was god awful, and it's like, all right, okay, well, if it's not going to make you money and it's going to hurt your company, I understand making a business decision, but then seeing all these things afterwards, like Spiderwick Chronicles and Nautilus, they're still trying to shop them around, so they can't be awful. They can't be things that they're just looking for cuts in. But we'll read this article and dive in.
Star Trek Prodigy again. That's another one. They've done the same. And Nautilus is the same. The show is virtually done. They have 10 episodes virtually done.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not going to show it. It's just, but let's read the article. That explains it.
Yeah. Real quick. Howdy, everybody. Howdy. Nice to see everybody as always. But this is a article on Collider by Aidan Bryant. Where do all the shows go, and what does that mean for us? So, big streamers like Max, Netflix, and Disney Plus have been in hot water with the public for seemingly years now. Between rising rates, bad shows, and the ongoing WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes, there's a lot of goodwill going around. One of the more recent issues to pop up has been regarding the removal of content from a lot of these streaming services for no apparent reason. Not because of problematic content or rights lapsing, but simply just to save money for the studio. Now, this started with mostly old and cult material like the majority of the Looney Tunes back catalog, and the show was the genesis of Adult Swim, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I'm just so sad. We need more. Now we're beginning to see some new moves by the studios, and they're quite troubling. Any thoughts before we jump forward?
Well, we're going to get into a couple of the reasons here, and there are more. I think there are more reasons than they list, but we'll talk about it.
All right, so
it's mostly cock custom, but yeah. So let's get into that bit then. So Nautilus, a prequel of Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, was completely filmed with extensive sets and a massive crew, only to be completely shelved by Disney as a cost-cutting measure. A big budget show, and it probably was. Wasn't this sort of like in the $8-9 million an episode area? I think.
Oh yeah, They really went all the way out for 20,000. I mean, it's 20,000 leagues under the sea. That's what you want them to do, you know.
Another $90 million under the thrown away, basically. Couldn't be a big budget show, biggest streaming service out there, and they never even put it out. Something isn't right there. Max has also started axing bigger shows, with popular sci-fi series like Westworld being taken off the service. Paramount Plus removed John Peele's version of The Twilight Zone, which was madness. While this is extremely concerning, it offers a few questions. For one, why would a streaming service remove content when the point of streaming has always been the endless supply of content to satiate every type of viewer? And when those shows do get removed, where do they go? The one thing is with Netflix, they've always added and removed and brought back content because it's a way of actually keeping it fresh. They can release an email for everybody going, new on Netflix. And my wife always gets confused. Oh, there's a new movie out because no, babe, look, it's actually 20 years old. And what? I said, no, this it's new. It's new to Netflix.
Yep.
You keep an eye on that sort of thing. But what we haven't seen before is shows removed when they've only been out a couple of months, or like this, a show that's been made and not released.
Hasn't even been like promoted yet, which is insanity.
I don't think we've ever seen that before. Sometimes when a show airs back in the day on a network, it would air. They would get maybe to 10 or 12 episodes, and all of a sudden a show would get cancelled and get replaced with something else. That would happen quite a lot. But what didn't really ever happen, the only closest we used to get to this was sometimes a pilot would get made. Oh, actually,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Made, and they would never see the light of day.
Or sometimes be sold off to another studio to be used elsewhere. And that's what they're doing now for an entire series or multiple series.
Well, the cost of a pilot and the cost of doing an entire series is completely different. You're talking about sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars or a couple of low millions compared to, but back in the day, these shows didn't used to cost millions. The pilots would cost 80, 90, a couple of $100,000 really, because they were making loads of them. They were like churning them out. So all of this, it's a very strange situation we're in at the moment.
Yeah, that was a whole different environment where a studio would say, all right, we're making 6 pilots. We expect 2, maybe 3. We'd be lucky if any more went. It's more like they're going to stick with 1. 2's probably the thing, but they're going to choose between those 2 later on, whichever one does better on air. That's just not happening now. They're just doing it prior to everything even being marketed, released, or even a plan for a marketed release to happen at all, which is funky. Pilots were always on a shoestring budget. Yeah, that's true. And they're not necessarily anymore. The closest thing in recent memory that's not like this year or last year or something like that I can think of like this was, once again, just a pilot. But what was it? What was the title? Was it Blood Moon or it was
the thing on? Yeah. Streaming services don't tend to do pilots, so do they? They don't tend to.
Not
they
all
tend to do 10 episodes. What we tend to see then is networks still do pilots. And you can still tell when a new show comes out. The Quantum Leap was the most recent one that you could really tell that the first double episode was a pilot. It was cheap as hell, really done a shoestring, and then the show really improved as the first season went on. When it got a bit of trust and they got going. But that was the last show I can really remember sitting down and going, "Whoa, that's like a proper old school pilot." Like a couple of characters disappeared in the 3rd episode because they thought, we don't like them, let's get rid of them. And like that was what you could always tell back in the day, couldn't you? A show, you'd have the pilot, then basically for the 2nd episode, a couple of people would disappear, a couple of people would come in, sometimes whole new characters. Sometimes it'd be like a completely different character, but the same person, but a completely different actor. The A-Team is a perfect example of that. Man for the pilot is a completely different person. They replaced him with Dirk Benedict because the audience didn't like him, so they just got rid of him and brought Dirk Benedict in.
The most recent thing I could think of is Parks and Recreation. They got rid of Mark Brandanowitz after 1 season because he just wasn't funny, and you bolster the cast around it after the fact. But I can't think of anything else in recent memory that's
A lot of shows you see
disagree.
changes of like just after the start of season 2, you'll see changes. Star Trek: The Next Generation was thing on that. Geordie LaForge, who used to be like one of the pilots, all of a sudden developed loads of engineering skills and become chief engineer. The Klingon, Worf became chief of security, which made sense, and they killed off Tasha Yar. That was, I think, halfway through the second season, and then the show got a lot better after that. But that's quite common. We saw that in Stargate and stuff as well. Hey, Brain Pig.
Yeah.
That they rejig things along the way to make things work. That's quite common. But streaming services don't. If a streaming service isn't sure about something like this, what they tend to do is that they'll do a special. You'll see a one-off, 2-hour, like a straight to streaming movie or something, and then you might see a series later. They do that sometimes. But
which is effective when done right. Werewolf by Midnight is the thing that comes to mind. Not so effective when not done right. Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special.
There's no plan for a series after that, was there? But no, I know what you mean.
It did set up Guardians 3 to a degree. It had definite elements that, like, if you've watched the holiday special, it helped enhance what you saw for Guardians 3 ish. Like, it was just a tad,
Let's be honest, the Christmas special was crap, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 wasn't great.
Speaking of Kevin Bacon, apparently there's a new series of Tremors with Kevin Bacon that got canceled after one episode. So that episode's floating around somewhere. If that is the case.
No, that's true. They did try to do a series of Tremors. And it didn't get cancelled, it didn't get picked up.
Okay, so that wasn't.
So it's not quite the same thing, but yeah, Kevin Bacon. They did try to do a Kevin Bacon centered Tremors series, which would have just been. I'd have loved it.
I know. Tremors is like the best B movie. It's like an A movie, B movie. I don't know how else to describe it. It's the best of the best.
Yeah,
B movie.
It's that there's a little category of really properly classic B movies, because it's a B movie.
Yeah,
that are properly brilliant. And it's one of those things. I watched it with my kids quite recently, and they were like, "This is great." I'm like,
where the hell has this always been? It's always been there. It's just waiting for you.
Right, but it wasn't really, because it was quite a big budget for a B movie. Really, the special effects were pretty good.
Oh yeah, most don't get that kind of cash at it.
Decent film.
But most B movies don't end up with 7+ sequels after the fact anyway.
No.
Obviously, they didn't end up. It ended up being the character of Bert, right? Wasn't it Bert that they followed?
Yeah,
they weren't great. They are.
The guy with the big gun got a couple of sequels.
A couple. He's in all of them. He's the main guy after that.
Yeah, he became the main guy. Yeah,
they went down movie after that.
The only film that I would think that's maybe like Sharknado, where they then did millions of them.
Yeah, there was a bunch of Sharknado, or Lake Placid, or anything like that. Lake Placid had a bunch, but yeah. Out of these that we just saw in this part of the article, though, which one are you? That was a little too much highlighting. Which one do you think is the most surprising? Because Westworld and Twilight Zone are insane.
Jordan Peele, The Twilight Zone.
I think that's more
every film he then releases. You see a spike.
Yeah,
and he's only going to be doing big things. So I'm surprised by that. Westworld was starting to. It wasn't as the first season was great, but it was starting to go down. So I'm not surprised by that. But I think when we go into the next section, hasn't Westworld been bought by somebody else who's going somewhere else? Somebody will buy that because somebody will watch it, and I think it'll become a cult classic at some point. I think it will be one of those things that people will watch.
I think those first 2 seasons are great. The first season's perfect. The second, or right up next to perfect. Second season's really, really good. Next to great. And then it just nosedives. I still haven't seen the 4th season. I think I'm in an episode. I don't even remember. I think I'm an extra in an episode somewhere in season 4. My old roommate.
You never seen it? I think I'm going to have to watch that because the 4th season, I've watched a bit of it and it is supposed to pick up. So I do keep meaning to sit and watch it, but then they took it off. So I don't think it's even on the Sky platform over here. It's most of HBO stuff ends up on Sky Atlantis over here, and I don't even think it's on there.
I kind of think the only I might be completely wrong, but if memory serves me right, I think that the only way to get it is to buy it right now.
I think so. Yeah.
Kind of, I think what Warner Brothers maybe wants you to do to a degree.
Well, they're going to be sad because I am not doing it.
No.
I'll wait for it to appear on Roku and then I'll watch it.
Well, speaking of just Nautiluses and things real quick, Flanagan had made 12 or 13 pilots before he took the role in Atlantis. That was a great story. I loved that shuttle pod story there. But yeah, that used to happen all the freaking time. If you don't know that shuttle pod story, that's like the epitome of it.
What is it about? That, like Jennifer Aniston did loads, and she did hundreds of these things. And we saw the other one, the other woman from Friends, whose name's not gone in my head.
Lisa Kudrow.
Sorry,
Lisa Kudrow.
No, the other one.
Courtney Fox.
Courtney.
Is it Fox? Why am I? Yeah, right. Feel crazy.
Courtney Arquette, whatever her middle name was. She was Arquette for a bit, wasn't she? But anyway, Courtney, she was in loads, but you can actually find her in a few because a few actually made to air.
Courtney Cox. Okay, I was like, I'm not going crazy. Good.
Courtney Cox, Arquette, and Courtney, whatever she is now. But yeah, she got fit. But they appeared in loads. I think it was only pretty much like David Schwimmer that hadn't really done a lot. And they wanted him specifically, but he hadn't really done. I think he'd been on stage and stuff, but he hadn't really done a great deal. So, but yeah, that's the way it works. Isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm with you though. I think Twilight Zone is the one out of these. It's just like, really? Because part of me is like, okay, it might not have the biggest audience, but it has an ageless audience in a way.
Yeah.
Since it's Jordan Peele, anybody new coming on, that might be one of the things that hurts it, though, is it feels like kind of Doctor Who in a way where, like, I thought all the new Doctor Who stuff was, like, really correlative with all the old stuff until y'all corrected me, like, in the last few months, essentially. I feel like that might kind of be the same way with Twilight Zone. People are like, oh, it's that old show. They're still making it. They don't necessarily realize it's Jordan Peele. That would be the only thing.
But I think Jordan Peele, because before Peele was just that other guy in that comedy show for a while, but now he's actually becoming a properly respected director, and it's only going to go up. And all of a sudden, if they could get him to continue making it, and just do like the bit at the start, a bit, like Thingy used to do, Hitchcock used to do.
Yeah,
I mean. I would have thought that would. You're going to get a cult following is going to grow, but they're just going now. That's it. I just have to wonder what information are they using to make these decisions.
That's a good point because they're not sharing it with us. That's the truth, and
there are reasons why they're taking this stuff off.
Yeah,
and not just. So let's go on to the next bit.
All right.
I was talking about it, I think there, doesn't it?
So the second question is the easiest answer. For a show like Nautilus, it's being shopped around to other streamers and will hopefully be picked up by someone. If not, that's really all she wrote for the show. Westworld, once a huge show for HBO, is not available anywhere currently unless you want to buy the entire series. All right, well, we just answered ourselves. Rumors had it going to Tubi, but it seems like that is only on their live Warner Brothers channel. And you cannot watch the show as it would traditionally be watched on streaming. You can only watch it whenever it's airing on that channel. Twilight Zone has been booted to Freevee. Oh, I didn't realize that. Has been booted to Freevee, Amazon Prime, where it's only available with ads. This is really the opposite of the promise of streaming. That's true.
I don't have a problem with Freevee, though, because people keep moaning that they have to watch these things and it's behind a paywall and they have to, I can't afford any more streaming services. Well, surely then Freevee is your wet dream. All right, you have to put up with 30-second adverts, but they are irritating because they tend to be the same one. Go to the toilet.
What's better about that is they'll play 2 or 3, maybe 4 30-second adverts, but it's less time at the end of the day than what you would be watching on cable with ads in general.
Oh, and they're constant. I'm sure it probably will get to that point where the adverts are annoying like that. But because they only seem to have 3 companies that want to advertise on Freevee, most of the adverts are advertised in other shows on Freevee. But at some point it's going to grow. But yeah, I'd have thought, okay, you're saying you want more content, but you don't want to pay another subscription. Freevee. You should be. People pay, but people go nuts though. I don't know what's bloody adverts.
Which Amazon, I feel like, is already kind of. If you're paying that $10, $12, or $15 a month, whatever it is for Amazon Prime, you get a streaming service out of it too. Like it's already almost Freevee in its own little way.
But you don't need to have Amazon Prime to watch Freevee.
No,
you can just watch it through your smart TV. So it can be free. But okay, let's go to the next
worlds. Real quick, Matt was saying he's currently too tired from work to even consider being interesting. It's all right. We still love you. We still love you.
Who's he calling a boy? I'm like 20 years older than both of you. It's like, supreme leader, for fuck's sake. I mean,
supreme leader of Gopher.
How many times have I got to tell you these things?
I'm gonna find a way to do a supreme leader Snoke thing like Star Wars, but we're gonna put you as a
my head on it. Yeah, I'm sure Matt can do something.
I know. We're giving him ideas already. Real quick, we'll finish this little paragraph here. When the streaming boom started, it was a home for shows that maybe didn't get enough love to either be watched by a new audience or to be revived, like what Netflix did with Arrested Development. Now we're seeing shows that people did watch and love, or shows that haven't been even aired yet, being removed from streaming entirely. Raised by Wolves, which had Ridley Scott attached to it, was removed from Max entirely. There is seemingly nothing you can do to stop your show from being removed. Okay, I'm Raised by Wolves, though. As much as I'm a sci-fi fan, I hated that show. I never watched season 2, but I forced myself to finish it, and it hurt.
I couldn't follow it. I just couldn't follow it.
You know me. I love slow burns. I love conceptual sci-fi, the weird stuff that, like, all right, just bring me along until you hit me with it. There was nothing to ever hit me with there.
No, it made no sense to me. I couldn't follow it. I did try, but I didn't get through even a couple. I think I might have watched 2 episodes, and I just thought I don't know what's going on. And you shouldn't be watching TV going, what's going on? It's not an essay. It's not like you do in your A levels. It's supposed to be entertainment, and it just wasn't. It wasn't entertainment. It was just silly.
Yeah, no, I saw Ridley Scott, and my brain was like, just finish it. It's Ridley Scott. It'll be good. It'll be good. And it just never was. It made me more sad than Alien Covenant. I'm kidding. It made me more sad than Prometheus.
Yeah, both not great.
Foundation's a slow burn, but it's meticulously beautiful along the way. And Raised by Wolves was barren and boring. I just don't know another way to say it.
And even though I agree, Foundation is a slow burn, it's a slow burn with a point.
Yes.
And yeah, if that's not your thing, go watch Star Trek, because that's not, that's just like poo, every 5 seconds sort of thing. Go watch that.
Or Stargate.
Or Stargate. I'll go back to Stargate. Just do what I did yesterday. Turn off Wheel of Time and put Stargate Atlantis on. I'm on the 5th season now. I'm a very happy boy. But it's just like, just watch something else. If that's not your thing, then fine. But if you want something that does make you think and does, is a bit intellectual as well, but it's conceptual and things, then Foundation's for you, definitely, 100%.
And I feel like Raised by Wolves is probably some of those things, more so in season 2, but I don't need to watch an entire season of a show to get to something.
If something was going on with that, it was over my head.
Yeah. I mean, there's something, but it's just like, okay, well, piece these things together just a little, not necessarily a whole lot faster, but just give us something.
Crack on,
yeah.
Please. Yeah, I know.
With this, though, I really like the second part of that article because it said Arrested Development was brought back by Netflix. And they've done that, I think, 2 or 3 times with Arrested Development. They've done it once with Clone Wars.
Schitt's Creek?
They did it with Schitt's Creek.
They made that into a massive hit.
Oh, yeah. They've done that a few times. And I guess that's probably the closest thing that we will have seen in recent memory to correlate to what's going on now. But this is, I mean, the difference is like these shows have never aired. And yeah, we've covered that. But how do you sell something that hasn't aired? How do you sell something that doesn't have a baked-in audience? I guess 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea has a baked-in audience, and so does Spiderwick Chronicles. But some of these other shows that might be on the cutting board, how do they get picked up?
But I think a few years ago, if a show had maybe not done very well on the network, it appeared on streaming service. They would still try and get some of the money back. You know what I mean? They would still try and do it's back in the day. It would be like if a film has bombed at the cinema, it would be on a DVD within a couple of weeks. It would be, or if they just realized during testing or whatever, this film is not very good. This hasn't worked. it would just go straight to DVD. That still happens now. We still get films that we are expecting to go to cinema, and then very last minute, it's on Hulu. You know what I mean? It's like this does happen. But
Prey, obviously Prey was meant for Hulu. It just felt like it should have been.
Prey was always supposed to be, but they did speak about cinema a couple of months before. There was rumors that maybe this should go to the cinema, and then the rumor is that the sequel will go to the cinema.
Hopefully Blue Beetle doesn't hurt those chances, because Blue Beetle was supposed to be a TV movie, and then they were like, we'll toss it in theaters. Look how good Prey did on Hulu. Blue Beetle's not doing too great.
It's because Prey was good.
Yeah.
I just hope they don't ruin that because there's been lots of conversations about maybe Arnie would be in it, and he would bring back Duke. Not Duke. That's not right, is it? What's his character's name?
Is it?
Like Duke?
Duke sounds, I don't know. That just sounds right for every Arnie character, honestly.
He will be back. But I think that would be a massive mistake. I also think there's those rumors that she's going to be becoming because in the comics and stuff, if somebody survives a battle with a predator, they can go on and then actually fight alongside the predators. I kind of hope they don't do that, because that would be, I'm not sure about that.
I like the idea and like the cultural stuff. It just turns into a cheese fest too quickly, I feel like.
It's to get a sequel to Prey right is going to be, I think what they actually have to do is do a Prey movie, Prey 2, but completely different characters in a different time frame or something. That could work. But if they try and follow her character, they better have something very clever in mind.
Yeah. Because I really like the cultural bit of the Yacha, I think is how you say it, something like that. Yeah. How the Predators, the easiest way to say it, they incorporate those like the best warriors they find across the world, across galaxies, into their fleet, into their people.
That was revealed in Requiem, and then the Predator, that actually they use the genetic material from their prey to improve themselves, so they're constantly evolving, which is why we then in the Predator we see that massive like 9-foot predator, because it's the next gen. We saw that in Predators as well, that there was like a lower class predator that was signed up something, so they have that hierarchy, so we've seen that before, but yeah, it was nice to see like an earlier version of the Predator, which a lot of people went nuts over, and a lot of people went, 90-pound girl can't beat up a predator. And I was like, actually, the point of that film all the way through really annoyed me. The point of that film all the way through was that actually that the predator doesn't consider her a threat, and that's how she survives early on. But she survives just long enough to watch and to figure out a way of actually defeating the predator. And actually, Arnie's muscles didn't matter, because the predator was much bigger than him and much stronger than him. It was his intelligence that he was lucky enough to last for whatever reason. It was Dutch.
Yep. I'm going to say it in a little bit.
He was lucky enough to be last, because the predator could have killed him first and he'd been dead. Nothing he'd have done. If he was the guy, with the MIDI gun sort of thing, and he just gets shot.
At that point, it's either Jesse Ventura or a Carl Weathers movie.
Yeah, exactly. But if he'd have been, Dutch could have been killed first, and he wouldn't have known it was coming. He just happened to be lucky enough to be last, and happened to have been a scout when he was a kid. Other than that, he was just lucky.
Yeah,
she was lucky the same. It was the same formula. It didn't matter that she was a 90-pound girl. That's just the wokeists going nuts.
For real, I don't think there's a single Predator movie, whether it's one of the good ones or one of the bad ones or one of the middling ones, that has a human being just straight up punching and trying to fight a Yacha, a Predator. There's not a feasible way. Whether you're Arnie or whether you're Amber Midthunder in the 1800s as a Native American frolicking with hatchets and arrows, like. No matter what, you got to use physics against them things, and you got to be able to be smart, and that's what they did.
I mean, the axe on the bungee, I'm going to go. It looked great, but come on,
cheesy, genius.
Yeah, and the flowers that make you dead. That was stupid. But actually, I didn't mind. I could let that go because other stuff was brilliant, and the bear scene when the predator killed the bear was just brilliant.
That was great.
Yeah,
but I guess the stuff with the axe and stuff, it never suspended our disbelief. I guess we still were distinctly in there.
It was a bit like Captain America's shield, or Daredevil with his sticks bouncing off. It's it's that. It was just this side of we all know that Captain America's shield defies physics, but we ignore it because it looks cool. And it's just this side of stupid, and that was with the axes. Really, it was like,
it's a movie.
Work. But it's a movie. Yeah, exactly. You gotta have a bit. If all movies were 100% realistic, how boring would that be? Yeah, and it was a movie about a chick fighting an alien as well, by the way. So I think we can let the axe go.
We were we talking about it yesterday or the day before? Like Sound of Freedom and all these different movies right now, like. It's doing a lot better than a lot of movies, but I would be very sad if every movie was as real as Sound of Freedom is. It'd be depressing as hell. I wouldn't go to the movies 150 times a year. I wouldn't. But if we get Prey, we get Avengers, we get some Star Wars. Obviously, I'm naming like IPs right now, but if we just get creative, fun little projects like The Creator or Rebel Moon, even something like that, I'm there. It keeps us.
We want a mix of movies, don't we? But I know that people have maybe got a bit sick of. I know we talked about this yesterday. People got a bit sick of maybe the extraordinary and the overuse of CGI and all this sort of thing, which we've talked about before. Which is just. I'm all right with if you're CGI, but there are certain films if you can't do it in real life, don't bloody do it. The other thing I'd say that. Not Fast and the Furious, that's a bad example because they just go ridiculous. I'm going to drive a car through a satellite. Hey, but I remember 1 in 60 seconds, right? So most of that movie is actually done, and a lot of it is the actors actually driving the cars. And like Nick Cage is actually a really good driver; he does a lot of the stunts. But there is a stunt at the end when he jumps the Shelby on a bridge, and it's a suspension bridge, and it is done with special effects CGI. And they actually said, look, they really, really wanted to do it in real life. But the stunt coordinator said, if we go an inch wrong, you're going to hit those cables and it will slice the car into a million pieces, kill everyone, and potentially collapse a bridge. Maybe we do it with special effects. And I'm just like, okay, fine. And it was done subtly, though. It wasn't like, they didn't do a backflip or anything. It didn't do a million rolls and then bounce over the hero. It just did a jump. Something wasn't safe to do in real life, so they did it with some special. The problem is, I think we've got so used to things like Fast and the Furious, where they've just gone. It's stupid.
Well, it's so weird where you can be watching an Avengers movie and like literally 80% of what you're watching is a cartoon. 80% of what you're watching is CGI. And a lot of the time it looks really good, but then it takes you out of it a lot of the time too. But when you apply that to something that's not like as fantastical, you toss Fast and Furious in there. The last two movies, I think they're I love me some Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
I'm there. Fast and Furious 8. Oh, that's my favorite popcorn.
Yeah.
And then the 9th movie came out, and then FX came out, or Fast 10, whatever the hell it is. It's just CGI.
Far.
They went so far that it's CGI so much.
Yeah. There's a suspension bridge collapsing, so he jumps the car and he catches the wheel on the wire and then it swings him over and he lands the other side. And I'm just like, come on!
You're telling me Dominic Toretto has the comprehension of physics to be able to do that on the go in the middle? Like, I don't. No. No.
Even if you did, it still wouldn't work. The wheel would be ripped off.
Yeah.
But there's what I'm saying is we've argued this with the Transformers movies a couple of times as well. I play a fun game with my kids. How many times will the star 100% have died? And it's like, and my 5-year-old daughter sat next to me going, I think that would have shattered his back, Daddy. He goes, yes, honey, it would have done.
Yes, good job.
And there's suspending disbelief, and there's just this is stupid. And you can get away with one or two stupid moments. You're like, oh, that was a bit silly, but what a movie. But when it's like every 2 or 3 minutes, you're like, oh, fuck.
When a quarter of your film is just silly, and it's not silly. Silly works sometimes. Guardians of the Galaxy, it works. Some things like that, it works. But even then, it can be very tiring at times. It's literally by the third Guardians, it was kind of like, all right. Now we're going to lean into sadness because we've kind of leaned a little too far into silliness.
Oh, we're going to lean into sadness, but no one's going to die.
Yeah, which is silly. Like,
God, Galaxy 3. But anyway, let's go to the next bit because this is the bit where we start talking about why is it actually happening. It.
Let's do it. You want to read or you want me to?
I'll read it. Yeah, it's fine. This goes into the elephant in the room. Why are streamers removing this content in the first place? There is no issue with the content itself. Well, sometimes there is. I disagree with that. But popular people and properties are attached to them. And to reiterate, a wealth of content is the entire point of streaming. You would think, like Jordan Peele's The Twilight Zone, is something right for reevaluation, or at least a bump in viewers when he releases a new film, as you mentioned earlier. Yet that is never going to happen now. Disney has reportedly said that gutting a big portion of its content is part of $1.5 billion cost-cutting measure. This content disappearing, coinciding with the current battle over residuals, is the ongoing strikes, is something that cannot be overlooked. If the writers and actors manage to win, all we have to then do is with the streamers just cut more and more content in retaliation. I don't agree with most of that. Just a second, my son has just texted me. Let me just message.
Sorry, I just realized my laptop was not plugged in. I had to run and grab that.
No problem. There is a residuals issue here, but actually one of the biggest cost-cutting measures. Just a second. Let me speak to my idiot son.
No, of course. Okay, so I'm with you. I don't necessarily agree with it. Cost-cutting measures do take up a lot of the things that like could be the reason these things are happening. But I mean, the gutting of content is, I don't necessarily think it's as much of it is a cost-cutting measure. There's not really, I guess, a way to say it besides that it is a cost-cutting measure, but I think it's a cost-cutting measure for quantity over quality. I think they are figuring it out that, hey, if we want something, we want it good. And maybe one of the good things about all this, like I think a comment, I did see it earlier, was a fantastic comment. I'll find it. One thing that's hurting the strike is that we can now go watch the shows we wanted to watch before, but didn't have time. Yeah. There's so many projects, so much content that we still have time to catch up on that I think the studios are, they're doing some cost-cutting measures. They're looking at these things and saying, we can't do what we have been doing. And then they're looking at us who still have innumerous numbers of things to keep watching and keep ourselves entertained while these creators are not creating anything else. I think their thought process, hopefully at least from this, is that maybe we need to make less projects and make more pertinent projects per thing. And that's what I hope is happening with all this. That's my optimistic view of all these things shuffling around, people canceling things, trying to sell them elsewhere. I hope this is just adding pertinence again to a lot of the things that we watch, if that makes sense.
But that doesn't follow through with things like Nautilus, though. I could understand that with more removing stuff that's been on there a while, like Netflix does. But you're right, when Netflix first came along, it was a bunch of old shows with the odd new thing. Netflix would make the odd thing here and there. And it still is, really. It's mostly old stuff that they've repackaged or, and think with a few new shows thrown in. And they rotate it constantly. They're constantly taking films off and constantly putting other things on. This isn't what we're seeing at the moment, though. This is actually them spending $100 million on a Nautilus series and then saying, you know what, let's not put it on. Now, the residuals thing I was saying before my son so rudely phoned me 2 or 3 times.
Is he good?
He's good. No, he just wants to stay out late, and I've just said it's a school night, and he's got to be back by about 8. And he's like, 8? Like, yes, you're 14 years old, and it's a school night. Get back. But
give him 8:45.
No.
I was a bad kid. Don't answer. Don't listen to me.
But he hasn't had any tea or anything as far as I know. But anyway, it's irrelevant. So it's residuals is a point, but at the moment, one of the reasons why the strike is going on is that the actual streaming services are not that good at paying residuals, and what they do pay tends to be shit. So the residuals really, I don't think, is a big part of it. Residuals for a show that hasn't even aired yet, they don't know how successful that show is going to be, and a lot of the residuals is based on how much it's watched. So if a show is getting watched, you pay the residuals. If it isn't, if no one's watching it, you don't pay the residuals. That's not a reason. What is a reason is that all of these shows have to be sat on servers somewhere. Mm-hmm. So there are computer banks have to hold all of these shows, and it is horrendously expensive, and it's only become more expensive. Netflix didn't pay, it paid a couple of pence on the dollar 10 years ago because they were the only ones in the shop. They were the only ones doing it. So, renting the space on servers around the world, and don't think it's not just one, they have to do it in several locations, wasn't too bad. But now there are lots of streaming services. All of a sudden, they charge a lot more. Amazon are making a killing on this because they're one of the companies that are creating a lot of these streaming services. It's one of the most profitable areas of their business. It's like, so that is the main reason why when Disney took a load of stuff off a few months ago, they had an instant saving of $600 million. And when the company is really struggling and making massive losses, all of a sudden you look at everything that's on your screen and say, if something's not being watched, get it off.
Yeah.
Because it's just costing us money just sitting there.
Well, it's like, essentially, it's online real estate in a lot of ways. They're having to pay taxes on it one way or another. And if you're not getting something to pay off those taxes with, you'd probably rather not pay them.
But it's like having rental. It's like having a house that no one's living there, and you're paying rent on it.
Yeah,
because it's just sat there. So get rid of it. And that's what they've done with a lot of these shows. Is they've just said, right, okay, if someone's not watching it, but boom, it's got to go because we need the space, and it's expensive. So I mean, I know Disney have saved a crap load of money through just freeing up space on the servers and renting less of it. And Netflix have been doing the same for a while, but they've managed it pretty well. That's why stuff goes off. That's why TV shows go off there.
Well,
but again, that doesn't really understand why they've got rid of this Nautilus, because that might have been a massive hit, unless they think it's not.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, if they were doing this a year ago, do you think Willow ever makes it to TV? If they have the same mindset they do then? Do you think the reason Nautilus and Spiderwick Chronicles got canceled is because they thought it was on par or worse than Willow? Or do you think they're just doing it just for cost-cutting measures and they're like, all right, well, this isn't what we want to present ourselves as, so we made it, but we want to sell it to somebody else?
There's a couple of things as well there, though, that 12 months ago, a lot of the streaming providers, a lot of the studios, had executives in charge of inclusionism, exactly, and those have started to get fired. Basically, they started to get rid of a lot of them. They've realized that, I hate the term woke. I hate it, but that's the word we have to use now. So simple as that. There are bigots and stuff that shout woke. We say this all the time, but actually there is a problem there, that we've had some TV shows that are so, the inclusionism is on their minds so much that it makes poor shows. So I do wonder, maybe when the new people in at Disney, and that there are top people in there again, have looked back and gone, we've done it again, we're just going to get yelled at, so just pull it. It's actually going to hurt the brand. And I think that's why Batgirl got pulled, because I think Zaslav went in and he went, actually, this is good. I know it's $80 million, but if we release this, it's going to hurt us. So just don't release it. How bad was Batgirl, though, compared to things like Blue Beetle, that they tried to lie to us? They tried to say, this is the greatest sci-fi movie ever made, or greatest superhero movie ever made.
They said that for Flash, which...
They did it with they did that with the Flash, and I'm like, if that James Gunn genuinely thinks that's the best superhero movie ever made, the next 10 years at DC are going to be very painful.
I do think the Flash would be looked at a little. The CGI is pretty damn bad in a lot of places, and that does take you out of it. And the story's not necessarily great, and it kind of forgets a lot of its own plot points, especially eating calories at a certain point.
Yeah, it doesn't bother.
But I feel like if that would have come out before Across the Spider-Verse, we would have a different take on it. I think that's the take that I think we're getting from a lot of those people.
Honestly, I don't think so. I think it still would have been roundly pretty much hated because it is actually a poor film. The actor's problems didn't help.
No.
The actor being an annoying little twat also didn't help. And he's supposed to be annoying, and then he meets his twin, his other version of himself, who's more annoying. And I'm saying, dude, if a big plot point of this film is that this person is annoying even the annoying person, right? So in the background of the Justice League, the Flash is actually that version of the Flash is actually quite interesting because he's sort of like comic relief. But as the main guy, he's just irritating.
It's abrasive. I don't know a better word for it. It's abhorrently abrasive.
Bit where he loses his power, so he's then doing that and just running really slowly. I'm just like, oh, for fuck, just kill me now. It's just bad. So,
I think it would have been looked upon better until Across the Spider-Verse came out because they literally do the same thing.
Such a good job with it, yeah.
So much better.
Yeah.
But that concept, I think it would have been a nice little stepping stone to Across the Spider-Verse. But I think Across the Spider-Verse did good by just being first and blowing our minds with that.
I do think, though, the other problem was the Flash TV series did it better.
Big time.
That's also a big problem. That anybody that loves this TV show must be sitting through this watching going, I've seen this story. They just did it. They even had Michael Keaton.
And they did it in like season 4, right?
That's when it started, yeah. But it was so, I mean, it was just done better.
Oh, so, yeah. The Cow did a better job, CW, but that's funny.
That is mental that the CW did it. But I think actually The Flash was their best show, I think, for me. I think it was just phenomenal. I actually liked the Arrowverse as a whole. Actually, I quite liked it. I watched Arrow when it first came out. I quite liked it.
At its peak, it was amazing. I was watching 4 shows. I was watching Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl every week.
Legends of Tomorrow for me was where it started to. I started to lose.
Season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow, I will fight for all the time because that was great. Leonard Snart at the end was that was some good TV, and then season 2 it leans into the silly. It gunnifies itself a little bit, for lack of a better term. The CW AI writers did better a little bit. Howdy, Neeraj. That's our editor, graphic designer. You'll say howdy and thank you to Neeraj while he's here. He keeps me going. But is that why Crater got pulled after a few months to save money? I'm not familiar with Crater. I'm not sure.
Oh, that rings a bell, but I can't think. But yeah, it probably would have been.
David Bailey asked, is it the return of Blockbuster and cable? I think it's the return of cable. I think it is. I think it's the return of the Blockbuster in a way, but not necessarily like Blockbusters. I don't think it's like the company Blockbusters coming back in the way it was in any shape or form anytime soon. But the 2 biggest movies of the year, or the 3 biggest movies of the year, are tentpole films. They're Barbie, Super Mario Bros., and Oppenheimer are tentpole studio films. They're not independent, but they feel a little more independent because we're just stuck in the superhero zeitgeist and all these different things. They feel a little bit more independent, which is nice. I like that feeling. But it's weird because a studio tentpole film should not feel more independent. And that just shows you where we've become as a society, where our film is and how our mindset, I guess, going into film is we want that spectacle. But now we're kind of tired of that spectacle. So we want like not a mid-tier spectacle. That's not the right way to say it, but something that's not going to be over the top all the time, but just right. Like Barbie's not over the top all the time, just 85% of it. Oppenheimer's not over the top all the time, just like in like 10-15% of it, but where those like percentage points hit, they hit harder.
Yeah, it's what Marvel used to be brilliant at.
So great. Winter Soldier.
I keep saying this. They just wandered up to silly, but they never crossed the line. And then after, you know, the last few films, though, they're dancing all over the line and making like they're flicking V's at the line. It's just
After
like
Guardians.
Yeah, it's just it's gone. They've just forgotten. They've lost their mojo. They've forgotten how to do it.
Has Hollywood destroyed their brand? No, I don't. What is the Hollywood brand?
Their brands.
What is the Hollywood brand? I don't. It's ever changing. I don't think
Hollywood's got
destroy it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Hollywood's got a big problem right now because entertainment was its industry, and now the rest of the world is doing it better. It's and these strikes, I honestly think a lot of the longer it goes on, the quicker they're hastening their own downfall, because the studios will just move out of America. They just won't. They'll just go elsewhere, and they're just hastening their own decline if they're not careful. I think at the moment there is a really big argument. Don't get me wrong, and I support what they're doing, the WGA and SAG-AFTRA, and I do support them. But they do have to be considering. This is like in Britain, we used to have a really strong car industry, but the makes kept going on strike and kept going on strike, and in the end, the car manufacturers either fell apart, collapsed, or they moved manufacturing out to the UK. And we basically then didn't have a car manufacturing industry for 20 years. We don't have a major British car brand. We just don't have one. Any that you know are owned by somebody else. We have a really good small industry, but we do not have any major manufacturing. Our biggest car manufacturer in this country is Nissan. So because they've got a big factory here. Oh. That's what Hollywood are really at risk of doing. They're actually risk of cutting their own throats if they're not careful, because it's cheaper and a lot of the time easier to produce this stuff abroad. At the moment, they've still got the big Hollywood actor is still a thing, but even that's not guaranteed.
Well,
so really a danger.
I scrolled up thinking this comment would correlate a little bit more, and it does to a degree. And we can kind of make it correlate a little bit more. Is it possible that YouTube reviewers are destroying shows before it's released, therefore the shows have less viewers, when in reality most shows are mindless entertainment? People are going to say yes. I think absolutely not. To a degree. To a degree. I think there's the subsect of people that will probably do that. But I think a lot of the ways we treat it, it would be the same ways after a football match, American football everywhere else. Afterwards, you watch the post show. You watch what the commenters thought about it. Then most of the time, if you're a dude, you're going to go watch a podcast about it. And then another podcast talking about the opposite kind of point of view on it. And then you're going to go watch Game Center on ESPN the next day to tell you more about it. We're doing the same thing with movies. I think the more you do that, the more eyes you get to go see those movies. I don't think you can take it away,
The nice thing about the YouTube reviews, when they're honest as well, is that, and they don't have an agenda, which a lot unfortunately do have an agenda.
Yeah.
Is that when a good film comes out that people aren't watching, they bring eyes to it. And that is the positive. The negative is things like Rings of Power, that there was so much negativity thrown at it before it came out, that it harmed the show. And it did. It harmed the show. Even if people didn't watch it because they just assumed it was going to be a woke pile of nonsense, or they watched it with that mindset.
Yes.
That's really negative. I actually think Dial of Destiny was massively harmed by YouTube and YouTubers throwing a lot of negativity at it, because at the end of the day, that film, even Crystal Skull had a good first weekend. Dial of Destiny didn't even have that. I think The Flash had other problems, but YouTube didn't help. But there were other issues behind that. The problem is there are YouTubers that have an agenda against certain projects for certain reasons, and it does harm those projects. But like I say, there are two sides to that coin. because it can just as easily bring a lot of a positive attention to projects it wouldn't have done. The damn problem is that we've got far too many YouTubers with an agenda that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers because they're very right wing or very left wing or one or the other. And I actually generally think they don't, a lot of the time, believe what they're actually saying. They latch onto certain things and then they just attach their agenda to it and they go.
Yeah, same thing does happen in gaming. Okay, I have two thoughts real quick.
Go for it.
I've got to remember the first one because I thought of the second one and it blew the first one out of my brain. And when I thought of the first one, it threw the second one out. You know how it works sometimes. Popcorn says, was it really the reviewers that tanked it, or did the Amazon marketing that made everyone think the show would be shit? So that question is kind of part of the question I was going to ask. Is with I don't think Dial of Destiny deserved it, but do you think Rings of Power deserved the hate it got? Because they literally gave us. I mean, it looked beautiful. It is a beautiful show. But it's not a good show. It's not written well. It's underwritten, underdeveloped.
It's brilliant. I think it's a good show. It's not brilliant. It's too slow. It's not as good as it should have been.
For that type of material, though, did it deserve that type of hate? Not necessarily that type of hate, but it deserved at least some or a portion of the hate. Because
I think it could have deserved. I didn't think it deserved a lot of the hate because a lot of the people throwing hate at it hadn't seen it. So how can you hate something you haven't seen yet? And they were saying it was going to be this, going to be that before they'd seen it, and that really irritated me. Amazon, the way they set it up and everything, I think they knew, shit, we're going to have to tell people we spent £1 billion on this. So instead of sort of trying to keep it quiet, they made it a big deal that they'd spent. This was going to be the most expensive show ever made, and they wore it like a badge of honor, and that was a mistake. Because we were just going into a period of cost cutting and where people all of a sudden were starting to penny pinch. And I think a lot of people were like, and were genuinely angry that why are you spending this stupid amount of money on this TV show? This is ridiculous. It's more than you. I know, and I know the whole £1 billion is, but dollars sort of thing is not quite accurate. But basically they did. But they wore it like a badge of honor. If they'd have done that 10 years ago, I think people would have gone crazy and people would have watched it just be, oh my God, this is amazing. How, they've spent all this money on the show. This is going to be, this must be amazing. But at the time they did it, people were starting to struggle financially. And I think it just mixed up a bunch of hate. And then unfortunately, a bunch of YouTubers latched onto things like the elf, that the dark-skinned elf and things like this.
Who was one of the best parts of the show at the end of the day. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I mean, even Lenny Henry's character, who those half-foots are supposed to be dark-skinned, and they were throwing a load of crap at that. And I'm just like, J.R. Tolkien would have hated this. Well, the family who knew him think it's great. So
I love people always say that. And then I think the other day I was on Instagram and one of the things that popped up was like one of the little 1974 Hobbits things, the animated film. Aragorn's straight up a Native American dude in there. He's like straight up like Apache as can be. Like he's just like, hey, and he's hugging Legolas, who's like this little fairy dude, and it's just like it's super funny. He's like a little. He looks so much like more like elf-like in that way. It's so funny. And then here comes Aragorn, straight up Apache Ranger, and it's just like I'm pretty sure the Tolkiens signed off on this too. Like I don't think they really.
The storyline of the Lord of the Rings is about nations. I mean, it was about World War I thing, but it was about nations coming together. I'm not sure J.R. Tolkien was a racist, so I don't. I know. Yes, I know the elves are supposed to be Nordic and blah blah blah, but looking at the story, I don't think it's fair to extrapolate that he probably would have quite liked it, and he probably would have had more color if he'd have written it today. So I don't think it's an unfair assumption to say actually he'd have loved those aspects of the show that a lot of people are going, Tolkien would have hated, he'll be spinning in his grave. You don't know that, so shut up. And Galadriel is portrayed as she's written. She's not supposed to be the most likable person on the planet, but she is supposed to be the finest warrior and all this sort of thing. She's supposed to be a bit of a superhero.
She wasn't the finest warrior. They leaned a little too much into the warrior aspect. Is my only thing. I actually love Morphin Clark.
Loved by the other elves because of all that sort of thing, wasn't she? So she was supposed to be a bit of a mythical elven being sort of thing, and that comes from a reason. So I think they leaned into what was actually written. So, but everyone just went because, and I just don't think I can't help but think that if that character had a penis, people wouldn't have complained about it. But she's got boobs and she's a woman, so she's a Mary Sue, and that just winds me up.
Yeah, I would have complained about it either way, but that's not what happened.
It's just it's strange that. But okay, a lot of people though have thoughtful reasons for this hate, and other people are just bigots, and they don't think beyond. It's a woman and she's just done a backflip. Women can't do that, and that's how they think.
It's like, I'm pretty sure they can do backflips easier, a lot smaller,
more gymnastics
to spin around.
Going back to Prey though, mate, a lot of people, 90-pound girl can't do that. It's irrelevant.
That's the point. That's almost the point of it. Like, she can't do that, so she had to find a way to. And it takes her an hour and a half, 2 hours, technically a few days worth in the actual show or the movie, but like 2 days worth in the movie. But it doesn't happen immediately. There's a struggle that has to get her there. That's The Xena over Hercules, though. I'm kind of with you.
It was awesome. I love Xena. Let's leave it for another night. Let's talk about it. I need to go eat. I do need to eat. And I'm live again in like an hour and a half talking about Star Trek. I need to go eat. So, but I think we've covered this and explained why these things are going, and it's not to do with residuals. It's to do with other costs, but it is a cost-cutting measure.
Yeah.
Streaming services have massively overspent, and they have screwed themselves royally.
Y'all should check out this article, though. It is a good article. Collider always puts out some good stuff. I'm a fan of some Collider. Hopefully, I need to check if I got those IMAX tickets to Haunting in Venice from Collider. I'm hoping.
I'm going to book my ticket. I need to see what's on. I need to go watch Equalizer 3 at the weekend, actually.
Yeah. Or go see Bottoms. Because I swear, that was the funniest. I know it sounds so crazy and weird, but it's it was the funniest thing I'd seen in the entire year. And there have been better comedy movies this year than we've had in the last decade.
Yeah.
And that was the funniest thing.
I will keep an eye open on it, but I'm going to go watch Equalizer.
All right.
So, it's a cinema movie. Come on.
Of course. But before you go.
Yes, sir.
Before I jump in and start reading off all these things for TIFF and what's happening in the Toronto International Film Festival, what can we look forward to? There's a Nick Cage movie that looks pretty good. The best episode of the best live action Star Wars we've gotten since George Lucas had his hands on Star Wars happened last night.
Ashoka was that good?
34 minutes of perfectness.
Better than The Mandalorian when that big hawky thing came in and swallowed a child, and there's some reason that child survived for days while they were searching for him.
That doesn't hold a candle. Ahsoka holds the lightsaber, not just one, two. And they're great. The first one, episode 3, legitimately, that will aggravate you. It's the shortest episode, 31 minutes. The writing pisses me off in a couple different spots.
But then what
happens in episode 4?
Right. I will start watching Ashoka tomorrow, and we will discuss it on the live on Sunday. And if it's bad, I'm getting a flight, and I will come and kick you in the nuts.
It's okay. You can do it. I'll still cook your barbecue afterwards, and then we'll watch the next episode of Ahsoka.
This is shit as well. Kick your nuts again. More ribs. Well, okay. I'll give it a go. I will push through the first 3 episodes then. Okay.
You'll love it.
I might have to watch the second episode again. I might not. I might get distracted.
Just watch 2 and 3 because those are short. Get those out the way. 4. Wow.
I had to push through the first series of Mando. I had to push through the first 2 or 3 episodes, and I ended up loving it. and maybe I was a bit quick, but I will give it another go. And I love the actress that's playing her. I loved her in everything she's ever done.
She does a lot more than just stand there and like this in the 4th episode, which is great because that's the only thing she's done for 3 episodes until episode 4.
Yeah. And there's a few leaps of logic in the first couple of episodes that I'll bitch about on Sunday. But
just a couple. But
okay.
They make up for it in this, which is so good.
Well, you've won me over, so.
Haha.
Okay. Right, guys, I am going to be back in an hour with Mike off the Solar One podcast. We're going to be talking about Star Trek. It was on for yesterday. I made a mistake. So it's been re-edited. But when you put a stream on and then you change the time, YouTube doesn't like it. But if it is on, it'll be tonight. It'll be 9 p.m. We're looking at classic Star Trek episodes. I'm asking the question, has any new Trek had actually any classic episodes? And I'm struggling.
Or is it all too woke? I'm kidding. I just had
yeah. So even I will argue that some of us are pretty woke. So we will be back on at 9 p.m. with Mike from the Solar One podcast. So Harris, thank you very much, Matt. You've dug into my eating time though by 11 minutes, you bastard.
Well, go eat real quick, and we'll be talking some Toronto International Film Festival for the next few minutes, and then I'll probably get out of here too. But we got another 15-20 in us probably.
Okay. Well, guys, stay on either channel. Actually, go over to MCubed if you want to watch the end, and then we'll end the stream on SciTrek for now. But go over to MCubed and make sure you tell your friends to go and watch the Young American.
Come on. We keep
but guys, I will end on SciTrek now. So guys, been amazing. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Wednesday.
All right. Adios, brother.
See you Sunday. Bye-bye.
Booyah. All right. Let me see if I can share this.